When in charge, take charge. So moving on to the closing disclosures, or to the documents. So in your handbook, okay. Again, the table of contents is hyperlinked to each section. Okay. We're gonna go through these documents in the order that you have them in your handbook. Okay. I'm going to take down the handbook from the online little portion right here. We're going to put together a little bit more of a 1-2 slide for you. But also know that the bottom of like the closing disclosure in your handbook, there are hyperlinks, right, for some sources from the federal government, et cetera. That way you can get a little bit more information in addition to what we're going to be throwing out to you as well. And so we decided to put this on there because I know, at least for my experience with the military, I've been in two different branches, and there's a lot of what we call barracks lawyers, right? There's a lot of people who you know what, I heard that if you do this, they can't do this, or if you do this, they'll do this, or whatever the case may be, but they don't actually know. They've never read it, right? They've never read the regulation, they've never read the laws, and so on and so forth. So I like to make sure that I have some sense of basis, and I don't just take people's word for it, and you don't just you don't just trust some random people on Facebook or YouTube, and you can kind of validate for yourself, what we are preaching out for everybody. Okay, so that's going to be there for you. I'm going to go ahead and switch out to the other slides that we got. Here we go. All right. So this is the federal closing disclosure. Okay, it's a federally required document. It summarizes the entirety of the loan. Okay, for the borrower. That way, everything's there in black and white, and they can see all the numbers, etc. I like to tell the borrower that, hey, this is the almost the end all be all, right? So if these numbers match up, then everything else, all the paperwork in the package with us right now, right, are supporting documents for this document right here. Okay, and then I tell them, hey, I'm gonna point you to where it says it in the actual documents, in the mortgage, in the note, and so on and so forth. So if you follow my imaginary finger pointing. On number 1, that arrow right there, all right, that's the closing information. So you have the date that it was issued, the closing date, the disbursement date, the settlement agent, so on and so forth. Okay, this can solve a couple answers for you right off the bat. So as you go through different signing documents, right, you come across titles like settlement agent, closing agent, so on and so forth. And a lot of new notaries ask, is that my part? Am I the settlement agent? Am I the closing agent? Am I so on and so forth? So you're not a settlement agent. Okay. And this can help you, if you forget, this can help you right there, right? Settlement agent, it has somebody else's name by it. And that's a different company, right? So you are not a settlement agent. So when you see settlement agent, signature required type of thing in any of the documents, that is not you. Okay.
Also, keep in mind that you don't want to be the settlement agent. That's the person who handles all the funds, and they've got the headaches. They've got the checks coming in and the checks going out, and that's not us. So that's I'll add there. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's the truth right there. So look at the closing date. All right, 9/15. Look at the disbursement date, 9/20. Okay, so our time hacks, right? The date that this was issued was 9/15. All of these are date sensitive, so they print them on the same date that they're going to have them signed, right? So if I'm sitting down with a signer and they refuse to sign that day, right, that whole signing has to get rescheduled, and I can't just keep the same documents, right? If I'm going to be the same notary, I have to wait for them to reprint the new documents with that date and then get them signed, and so on and so forth. Okay, so just some tidbit there. If you go on to number 2, all right, loan information. This tells the signer, right, the buyer, loan term 30 years, refinance, it's a fixed rate, it's a VA loan. Okay, and I let them know, hey, I'll be showing you where you can validate this in the documents as we go through. All right, go down to number 3, the loan terms. All right, as we do the mock signings, you'll see how everybody has their own way of doing it. As we mentioned earlier, right, John can make a pizza, I can make a pizza. You may make them differently, but at the end of the day, you're going to have a pizza. Okay. With these loan terms and with the whole document, I do revert back to my military recruiting piece, right? I point with my pen and I say, this is what it is, sign here type of stuff, right? So with loan terms, it summarizes their loan amount, their interest rate, their monthly principal and interest. Okay, that is just monthly principal and interest. If you go down to number 4, right, it has projected payments. In bold, you'll see estimated total monthly payment. That is exactly what it says, estimated. All right. Sometimes it's that same payment on the first payment letter. Sometimes it's not. Right. The first payment letter will itemize everything that is going to be on, and you'll see an example of this. But it'll itemize everything. That'll be their actual payment. This is simply telling them that that's what their estimated payment is going to be based off of principal and interest, mortgage insurance, and estimated escrow. Now, none of this I'm making up, right? And neither should you, even if you don't have any background in closing disclosures, right? Simply reading off the different sections to the signer is simple enough and easy enough for everybody involved. Okay. Going down to the next page. Unless John, you want to jump in on any of that?
Yeah, sure do, Josh. I've got a couple important points.
Go for it.
Go back to the first. Well, okay, you're still on it. So,
Yep.
I call here's what I call the closing disclosures. This is the meat and potatoes of your refinance. All right, this is the deal. To me, this is, as far as we're concerned, this is the most important document that the signer signs. I know there's a note, I know there's a mortgage, and those are very important. But when we're explaining things to these people, this is what I often use first. And it depends. I'm a veteran, so I have different ways I can do it 2 or 3 different ways. But if you're just starting out, I highly recommend that you go over the closing disclosure first with your client on a refinance. And it can put you at ease, and it can make you sound like you know what you're talking about. So you kind of take control. You put yourself at ease, and you put your signers at ease. And the way I do it, it's funny because there's a lot of good information up there in that top section, including the disbursement date that they want to know about. They oftentimes they want to know that it's a fixed rate. But here's my spiel, guys. Here's the way I do it. I say, all right, your closing disclosure, it's going to show you your principal amount, your interest rate. Here's your principal and interest added together. There's no prepayment penalty. There's no balloon payment with these loans. You have a 30-year term. I'm pointing to these the whole time, right, on the page. Here's your principal and interest added to your escrow. It shows your total payment. Your taxes and insurance are in escrow. These are your closing costs, and there's no cash out on this. No cash coming or going. Does this look okay to you? Yep, that's exactly what I signed up for. Bam, you're off to the races, guys. The second page, I just say, here's who's getting paid. Third page, here's who's getting paid off. Here's some additional information that we sign on page 5. Now, that's a veteran breezing through the closing disclosure. We can get into, there's all the other information there, but if they're okay with their fees, they've looked it over, they know what they're signing. Bam, I'm on to page 5. And would that take me 15 or 20 seconds to go through the whole meat and potatoes of the document? So if you can do that as a new notary, how hard is that? It's not very hard. There's like 6-7 points of information there. The rest of it, you just say, and you even tell them at the end, and like I just said a while ago, okay, now a lot of these other documents are notices, disclosures, acknowledgments, and we'll sign those as they come. But this is the important one, and this is your deal, in a nutshell. So
right.
That's the way I treat the closing. Very important document, closing disclosure. You might hear it referred to as a CD by the people at your hiring parties or the title companies, but that's what they're talking about, the closing disclosure.
Exactly. And you'll learn the art of that as you go through more. And I'm sure some of you have already gone through a lot of them, so you probably already have your own little system. Like I said, just ask everybody how they do it, and you'll go through just fine, and you'll make it your own. So on this one right here, for number 1, the estimated taxes, insurance, and assessments. Okay, you'll see that number, right, the 203.1. Look back up to the escrow, the estimated escrow. You'll see that same exact number right there. That's already calculated in their estimated monthly payment. All right, to the right of that, you'll see that estimate includes property taxes and homeowners insurance. All right, to the right of that, you'll see in escrow, yes, okay. Sometimes you'll see other checked, and it'll have like HOA, right? And then it'll say in escrow, and it'll say no. That just means that they're going to be paying their HOA outside of their monthly payment, okay, outside of escrow. Down here,
flood insurance in there too.
Right.
In these parts, you'll see flood insurance.
Yep. Exactly. So all that extra stuff, but that'll tell you whether it's in escrow or not. So if you review this, or as you're reading it, you'll be able to answer some basic questions for them that they may not even ask anymore, because you're just simply going through the CD piece. For number 2, with the cost at closing, I usually tell them, look, here's the cost at closing, here's your closing costs and your cash to close. All of this is going to be itemized on the next page. That way I can push them through this first page. What you got, John?
And listen, so the reason we do this first is because 99% of the time you get down to that cash to close and they say, yes, that's okay. Yeah, it looks right. Everything's good. We'll go. What if it's not? Okay, if this is page number 50 in your loan signing documents, and you've gone through the first 49, and you're just now finding out that the terms aren't right, and we don't have an agreement on what they thought they were getting, big red flag. You just wasted probably 20-30 minutes, up front there maybe, and now you're just now finding it out. So don't have to reorder the documents. We already covered that, but you need to know where that closing disclosure is. And I don't flag documents. I don't need to do that because I have to take a flag off, and that's more time. But for Amrock, I know where it is. For banks are my typical companies, that type of thing. I thought it's funny you've got Village Capital as a lender, and that can be a 200-page package sometimes.
Oh my God, you're not kidding. Like I said, when I was doing the mock signing pre-recording as a backup, right? I went through the whole thing, and obviously it's just me by myself, and so I'm going through and whatever. And it's about an hour, and that's of just me, and it's like, man,
those people combine
so much
redundancy with the actual refinance. We finally figured out, me and my buddy, they're putting a bunch of work on it. It's basically two closings in one. Anytime I deal with that company, I kind of gets.
But as you go forward, though, you start seeing those names, and you're like, no, I'm not taking that one.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of know who you want to.
Yeah, but it's okay. I mean, it is what it is. Everybody's got their thing, and some of them want the notarizations on everything, but it's okay. That's neither here nor there. So on page 2 with the closing costs, all right, it's an itemization, and you don't have to think on what it covers, etc. It's all right there for you, right? So this first section right here covers your loan costs. You move down, has your other costs, etc. So you can just let them review that if you want. You can point it out if you want. If you don't know a lot about the background for that or where to find different things, you may want to veer slightly away from going to too much detail. They'll prompt them to ask more questions. But here's the itemization piece for the previous pages closing costs, right there, number 2 at the bottom, right? The breakdown of that is this right here. Okay, for those of you who are interested in that piece. John, did you want to mention anything else on the closing cost details?
Yeah, just one thing that may come up on that page occasionally. I have this is the appraisal. Sometimes it gets paid outside of closing, gets paid beforehand. So it may not be in that. It may be in the before closing column there on your right. And people want to see, well, did they get my appraisal in there, or where's the appraisal, or that type of thing. And that's where it'd be on this page. I would think he did not shop for, maybe. Probably in that section B up there. But that's the only thing I would add there is it's got all these. Everybody's got their hands out, guys. Look how many people it takes to put a real estate, even a refinance. This is one where you're just rehashing the deal you already had, and this is still how many people got their finger in the pie there, so to speak. But we're in there too. We're on there too. So like
that's true.
You gotta have us.
That's true. I don't know where the other slide went for signing, but on the closing disclosure at the very end, the very last document, right? Or you know what? I'll do this because I don't want to not show it. All right, let me go. Yeah, let me go back to the handbook real quick. Okay. All right. So here's the next page after the one we just saw. All right, right at the very top, that's the actual payoff for the current mortgages on it. Down at the bottom, you'll see calculating cash to close. That middle left column right there, the loan estimate. That is exactly what it sounds like. That's just an estimate of their loan that they were given by their lender. To the right of that says the final, and that's the final amount that's coming from the lender for them. Okay. At the very bottom of that column, you'll see whether it's going to be money paid to or from the borrower. All right. In this case, it's 0. But if there was a money, that little X right there, it says from the borrower, would be receiving something from the borrower. If it's to the borrower, they'd be receiving something from the lender, etc. And on the right, it tells them whether something changed from the estimate to the loan. Okay. So you're just pointing that out to them, and then you're moving forward with it.
If John Q. Doe isn't happy with his terms, chances are the answer is down here in this block. Okay, something changed. He saw something in his loan estimate, and now he's seeing something different on his closing disclosure.
Right.
we're not the person to solve that mystery for the people, but we can point to that information and maybe put a little fire out and tell them, say, here, this is what changed, and they'll tell you why. Now sometimes they're pretty vague on that reasoning and rationale. They don't put a whole lot down there. You may The beauty of our job is we can always go back to our hiring party. And if that's a signing service, maybe they'll need to go back to the lender or title. But so here you're talking, this would be what a lender puts the closing disclosure together. Well, it depends. It's got to have information from both parties. So I've seen it put together by the lender, and then I'll put together some myself. So it just depends. But the bottom line is, that little mystery down there on page 3, the discrepancy. If you see something that did this change and it says yes, all right, what's the difference? Is it a lot? Is it a big amount? And then why? And that
Right.
will,
But none of that is your problem as a loan signing agent.
all
All
you
right.
do is point it out to them and get them on the horn, and then they're going to hear the same thing that you just showed them. You're just leading them to drink. You're just leading that horse to the water there. Okay, this is where you get your answers. You don't give them to them. You let them find them on their own. So
And this is where we I think we split ways in terms of that. So I don't lead them to the water and ask
all
them
right,
to drink, right? So when I'm going through it, I let them know. I show them on the documents, right? This was your loan estimate. This is the final, all
right,
right? The section over here tells you whether that changed or not. At the very bottom, blah blah blah. And that's after you're done reviewing it, go ahead and flip it on over, and then if there's any issues, let me know. And they just look at it and they flip it over, or they say, well, why is this? I don't know, sir, ma'am. We'd have to contact your lender, and we could do that if you'd like. And then most of the time they're like, nah, I think it's good, and they
right.
keep on going. That
Yeah.
way I don't cause any extra chaos that I don't need to cause from my side of it. But
I, and most of the time you're back on that front page and they say, are your terms okay? And you don't even get to that. I just say that's where the payoff is, and there's information down there. I mean, everybody has their own way. The main thing is people understand what they're signing, and you've
mhm,
ascertained their identity, and you give them a good clean set of documents. So
yep. So on the following page, right, you have the additional information about this loan, the loan disclosures. Okay, it tells you whether it's assumable, demand feature, etc. So as I go down through this little piece, right, the assumption piece, let's know whether that loan's assumable or not. What that means is in the future, can they have somebody take over the terms of their loan? Okay, that's what the assumption is for. So that box is either check yes or check no. The demand feature, right, whether your loan has a demand feature attached to it from the lender that requires an early repayment of the loan. This one does not. The late payment, right? This one has a 15-day grace period for the late payment, after which 4% will be applied to the overdue amount. And all of this is actually listed in the mortgage and note. Okay, and we'll point that out to you in this as it goes through. Negative amortization does not have a negative amortization. Believe it or not, sometimes like balloon payments, some people's mortgage goes up over time, or they don't have enough money to. Their interest is more than what their monthly payment is, so then that starts compounding, and their actual amount that they owe goes more or higher as the time goes on instead of lower. So you always, well, anyway, this one does not have that. This one, the loan goes down, like normal people.
sorry about that.
So partial prepayments, all right. This is letting the buyer know whether the lender will accept half payment today, half payment tomorrow type of thing. This lender is not. This lender is saying, hey, either pay me the full amount that you owe me for that month, or you don't pay me and it's late. Okay, so that's what that's about. And then the security interest is the actual property itself in most cases, but that's listed right there for them as well. Okay, John, you want to add anything on this one?
Just a couple of things. Mostly you get some VA work. Those are non-assumable. Most of the times you get a rider on there that has that. And that's because we thank those people for their service. Like Josh, we give them special deals, and not everybody can assume those deals. So that's part of the non-assumability thing. And then also, a lot of us have bought cars, and you see that APR on there. And well, why is my APR not my interest? Why is that so much higher than my interest rate? You might have that question asked, and we're not here to provide you can't explain terms. That's not our job. That's the people who made the deal. Go back to your loan officer, but just tell them, the APR factors the loan cost in over the life of the loan in addition to just the interest. So that's why I just tell them, just like when you buy a car, it's the same thing. You've got
Right.
extra charges factored in over the cost of the loan, and so it's going to be it's always a little bit more than what your interest rate is. You might
Right.
have
And
on that page.
that question will usually come out right over here in the loan calculations.
There you go. That's it. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking about. Yeah,
You're
yeah.
fine. So with this little piece right here, that is over the life of the loan. So I make it a point to let everybody know, this is over the life of your loan. You don't pay anything extra down. You don't pay it off early, etc. If you go full term, you're looking at paying this much in total interest percentage, and so on and so forth.
That number. I always tell
but it's federally required that it's shown to the buyers. So they may have questions, and like John said, that's a question for it's a question for the lender. Your job is not to sell people. Your job is to point them to the facts and the documents and guide them forward. Okay, and validate their identity, obviously.
Did I get a good rate? Is this a good rate, Josh? How do you answer that question?
I say, Mr. Doe, I am not actually legally allowed to answer that question. I'm just a third party. I'm an official third party, and I'm not allowed to answer that question legally. So I apologize for that. But if you're satisfied with the rate, that's what matters.
There you go. Great.
Leave that alone. So then then on the middle right there, you'll see contact information. So I tell them, hey, you need to get a hold of your lender, your mortgage broker, your settlement agent. Here's the contact information for them. And then down here at the bottom is your confirmation receipt. You're acknowledging that you received this closing disclosure, which again is required by federal law to be presented to you. And then please sign right here. And then I go through the process of please sign your first, middle initial, and last name, or however their signature line is right there. And then date, every date for the entirety of the loan. I say, please date 2-digit, 2-digit, 4-digit. And I'll say it over and over and over and over and over again with every single one, because repetition makes it happen, and they don't accidentally do the wrong thing.
And for the most part, we'll have our contact information in our signing instructions or whatever, but occasionally, sometimes I'll look over here and either find a name or a number. Like, this might be the person a little bit up above that person. So maybe you need to call from this sheet every once in a while. I've used it for that purpose as well.
Call everybody. If your phone number's on there, I'm calling you.
That's right.
And then the last page is an addendum to closing disclosure. There's no action item on this. I call them action items, like for initials and signatures and stuff. So I let them know there's no action or signature on this one. We just keep on going through.
FYI. Yep.
Yeah.